Good evening, everyone. The time is 7 p.m., Monday, August 11th. I'd like to call the Urbana City Council meeting to order. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Hersey. Councilmember Colasetti.
Here.
Councilmember Bishop.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Here.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 14th, 2025 City Council meeting. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All right, approval made by Councilmember Chandra, seconded by Mary Alice. All right. Next, we will move on to the,
have to vote.
I'm sorry. Clerk, please call the roll. I'm so sorry.
Councilmember Wu.
Yes.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Councilmember Colasetti.
Yes.
Councilmember Bishop.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Minutes are approved as presented. All right, are there any additions or changes to the agenda from council? Seeing none, we will proceed. We now move to presentations and public input. Are there any presentations? Seeing none, we will move to public input. If there are any members of the public that like to speak, please come forward, state your name, and limit your time to 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Lenhoff, and I'm the Director of Champaign County Healthcare Consumers. And I just wanted to let y'all know about some meetings coming up this fall that some folks might be interested in. The first one is, and I can provide written information about this later, but the first one is Thursday, September 11th at 6 o'clock at the Champaign Public Library, where we will have an information session on the big budget bill that passed and what it means for various health programs, food programs, housing programs, things like that. So it's just an opportunity for people to learn more about that and also about when the cuts to programs will hit and when we can expect them to affect our community. And then last time that I was here, there were some people interested in Medicare open enrollment information. So we will be holding a Medicare open enrollment community meeting information session on Wednesday, October 15th at 10 a.m. at the Champaign Public Library. And that's also an opportunity for people to get connected to organizations like Healthcare Consumers and others for help with the enrollment process. And anyone who is new to Medicare or about to be new to Medicare would be welcome to come to that. And then lastly, sometime in later October, we're still waiting to determine the date and time, but we will have a community meeting for Marketplace open enrollment. The Marketplace, I don't know if people know, but the state of Illinois, since the Affordable Care Act was passed, has partnered with the federal government for the Marketplace, which is where people can shop for private health insurance and also get subsidies to afford that health insurance. Well, the state of Illinois is opening up its own Marketplace for this fall's open enrollment. And so we will be using a new platform for helping people find affordable health insurance. So once we have that date set, we'll be providing more information to the community, but I just wanted to let y'all know that those sessions will be coming up in September and October. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that'd like to speak? All right, seeing none, public input is now closed. We will now hear from council. If there's any council input communication. Grace?
I'll just say during this time, since I wasn't here last week and you've bundled everything on the consent agenda very nicely, that I think I'll leave there, but just make a few minutes here of looking forward to a lot of good things and very needed things coming out of the HHI funding, and I'm glad we've got almost all of that pot of money allocated. And also, of course, happy to see the funding allocation for the Alternative Response Task Force and working with LEAP, and happy to see that moving along. So I just wanted to say some support of those issues, and I will leave them on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Grace. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on now. Are there any reports, standing committee? There are no reports. We'll proceed. We'll now hear from the Committee of the Whole. Councilmember Bishop, you have the floor.
On behalf of the Committee of the Whole, I present items A through J on the consent agenda. Do I have to read them all, Clerk? Okay, all right. Resolution number 2025-08-065R, a resolution approving an increase in the number of Class R&T-1 liquor licenses for Cephalus LLC, doing business as Cephalus Restaurant at 510 North Cunningham Avenue, Suite A, Urbana, Illinois. Resolution number 2025-08-066R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations to subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and Champaign County Healthcare Consumers for special populations outreach and enrollment. Resolution number 2025-08-067R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations to subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and Champaign County Regional Planning Commission for emergency shelter for families, Comfort Corner.
If it's permissible, I'm going to take over to read the remaining items. So next is item D, resolution number 2025-08-068R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and City of Champaign Township for Stride Shelter. Next is item E, resolution number 2025-08-069R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and the Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office for CARES/Bridge to Home program. And resolution number 2025-08-070R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and CU at Home, Inc. for Mattis Shelter Operating Support. Resolution number 2025-08-071R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and CU at Home, Inc. for Mattis Shelter Rehabilitation. And resolution number 2025-08-072R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and First Followers for Weber/Wiley Affordable Rental Housing Development. And resolution number 2025-08-073R, a resolution approving and authorizing a housing and homeless innovations 2 subrecipient agreement between the City of Urbana and Hope Village, Inc. for Hope Village. And finally, resolution number 2025-08-074R, a resolution authorizing expenditure of Alternative Response Task Force funds.
Second.
All right, motion made by Chandra, seconded by Chris. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Colacetti?
Yes.
Councilmember Bishop?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry?
Yes.
That is approved. Thank you. All right, we will now move to regular agenda. There are no items for regular agendas at this time, so we will proceed. Are there any reports from special committee? No, seeing none. We will now hear reports of officers. Are there any reports from officers? Seeing none, we will now move to, we have one mayoral appointment to consider. And the chief and the future deputy chief would like to come up. Welcome, gentlemen. Zach, you look good in the suit, man. It looks good on you. All right, so we have one mayoral appointment to consider, the appointment of Zachary Mikulik as the deputy police chief for a term ending June 30th, 2027. The Before I ask if there's a motion, is there anything either of you would like to say or comment?
I would just like to do a quick overview of
Yes,
his
sir. Go for
experience
it.
and why you and I selected him for this
Yes, sir.
position. All right, as Chief of Police, on behalf of the mayor and myself, I'm pleased to present Lieutenant Zachary Mikulik for the role of Deputy Chief. Lieutenant Mikulik is a strategic and forward-thinking law enforcement professional with nearly 18 years of experience at the Urbana Police Department. He's currently serving as the Services Division Commander. He has led the department through initiatives focused on officers' training, wellness, community engagement, and bringing us up to the 21st century with respect to systems and operations. Known for his calm, results-driven leadership and strong mentorship, Lieutenant Mikulik is trusted to solve complex problems with structure, clarity, and integrity. His leadership has been instrumental in launching impactful programs such as the Comprehensive Officer Wellness Program, a structured internship program, and a live action crisis co-response team. He has also led critical reforms in compliance tracking, community partnerships, and recruitment through digital outreach, including the department's first LinkedIn presence. Our social media, if you've been paying attention, has gone up tremendously since he's taken on that extra task. Lieutenant Mikulik brings a well-rounded, mission-driven approach to public safety, grounded in his prior experience as a patrol officer, patrol sergeant, police lieutenant, and his military service in the Illinois Army National Guard. He holds a Master's of Science in Management and a Bachelor of Psychology from the University of Illinois, combining academic rigor with practical expertise. He has worked and earned multiple commendations, including Community Engagement Award, Hometown Hero Award, reflecting a career defined by innovation, trust, and service. He's also scheduled to attend the prestigious FBI National Academy, an essential leadership development opportunity that I fully support for all our future leaders. He will bring a natural spirit for our community relations to the role of Deputy Chief, continuing his proven commitment to building trust, fostering collaboration, and leading with integrity. His ability to connect with people both within the department and across the community has always been a cornerstone of his leadership, and I have the full confidence he will carry that strength forward in his new role. I yield to you if you'd like to say anything.
I'd just like to thank you, Mayor, Chief, City Council. Hear me now? Thank you, Mayor, Chief, City Council, City staff, and everybody in the City of Urbana. I appreciate this opportunity. I do not take it lightly. I understand the responsibility that comes with this role, and I will do my best to uphold all the virtues and values that I've strived to achieve so far in my career, and the things that I believe that are most important for this office. I am a relationship-first person, and I've always been that way. I live in Urbana, I work in Urbana, my kids go to school in Urbana. I love this city, and I want to see what's best for it. And I believe that I can help with Chief's guidance to do that in collaboration with the rest of the city, the police department. So again, thank you.
I would just say I appreciate your willingness to step up. In this short stint of time that I've been, in this position, I've, had an appreciation and respect for the work that you've done. I see the way, your staff responds to you, and that's just a testament to your leadership. I see the way the community responds to you when they're out and about, and that's a testament to your leadership as well. So I am looking forward to the work ahead, and like I always say, let's get to it. So I appreciate you. With that being said, we will go ahead and move forward. Is there a motion to approve this?
Yes, I'd like to move approval of the appointment of Zachary Mikulik for a term ending June 30th, 2027 for a Deputy Police Chief.
Second.
All right, motion made by Jay, seconded by James. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to say I've had the opportunity to work with Lieutenant Miklick in the community and also had conversations with him here in Chambers. And I think the chief's description of him is very apt to what I've seen is that care for our community. And also our community's been through some tough stuff that has seriously impacted our officers. And when I've checked in with him about what steps were being taken, how are we taking care of the folks who are on the front lines, his responses were not only appropriate, but just showed that care for the officers who he's been helping to lead. So I just want to say that I appreciate this appointment and the work that I've already seen and look forward to seeing the department have the support in a leadership role.
Grace?
Thank you. Yes, I thank you for your willingness to take on more responsibilities and leadership, and appreciate your comments and passion for Urbana community. I also really like the description of some of what has happened here with especially the crisis co-responder team working alongside on active calls, which I think is great and what we've been working towards, and also want to throw out for the mayor and staff and department leadership that I think it would be great to involve the public. Like, I've been wondering what's going on with that, and I think it's really important to collaborate, especially as we have the Alternative Response Task Force, and I don't think we need to be dividing efforts and resources, but I think we really need a lot more coordination between the department and the public and the council, and have a little more information there. So again, really appreciate some of the work there, and would love to be more of a part of it as a community.
All right, anyone else? All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Colacetti?
Yes.
Councilmember Bishop?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry?
Yes.
All right, that has been approved. Congratulations, sir. Looking forward to your work ahead. Thank you. I would have offered a handshake, but I don't want to spread these germs to you, all right? So we'll revisit next week. All right. All right, the next item is the discussion of council rules and meeting procedures. So at this time, the floor is open for any discussion. Oh, come on. Chandra.
Can we get, I don't know, a summary where we left off?
Sure, yeah, it's been a minute. We've all slept since then. So basically where we're at is our city council rules, which are the rules adopted and written by the city council to govern yourselves and kind of help run our meetings, have not actually been modified since January of 2021. And there have been a handful of items that various council members have brought to attention that they think could possibly improve the rules. So what we have done is kind of summarize the points that have previously been brought to the clerk's office attention and the bullet points, as well as clarifying information about areas of question from city code, as well as a copy of the resolution that sets the council rules from 2021. And where we're at presently is hoping to narrow down any changes, if there are any, that you guys wish to see in a future resolution. The next step, of course, would be the clerk's office would prepare a resolution that would come back to a committee of the whole meeting that would incorporate the changes that you guys advise, and you would consider and debate it further, and then maybe eventually pass it and adopt new rules. But where we're at presently is we've just provided you guys with some notes, basically on feedback that we've received about changes you guys hope to see, and you're welcome to discuss them. You're welcome to add to this list. You're welcome to do as you please. They're your rules, so.
Mary Alice.
Hi, thank you. I just want to reiterate, I think I've said this before, I really like the idea of rotating the voting order. I think that it makes sense, what's laid out here in this document. I also think that it's good for us to be able to clarify the whole abstention and when you can abstain from something. Those are the two big things that I'm in support of on this list. I'd actually like to hear there's consideration of language used to address members of the body. I'm not sure about other people, but I have a tendency to address people by their first name, their last name. I don't know. I haven't standardized it. So I didn't know if this was as people are addressing us from the public, or if we're addressing each other in meetings. But I don't know if I'll be able to stick to exactly one thing. So those are my thoughts.
Grace?
Thank you. Yeah, so I don't know if strategically it might make sense if we go through some of these bullet points, do a little straw poll. I agree. I think the point there with the gender neutral language is to be in line with, you know, a resolution and commitment to that inclusive language throughout all of our city documents and policies. But I think that, you know, a name basis also makes sense, you know, and like we refer to each other by first and or last name. I think the main point here is just having gender neutral language. So either by someone's preferred name or by council member or trustee. But I think the whole point was just getting away from Mr. or Miss, which can be pretty not inclusive.
All right, anyone else? Chris? Are you raising your hand? Chandra?
So I guess, I think we all are in agreement about the voting order. I mean, if we could start there and talk about what the voting order would look like and how that would be implemented. I mean, I think that's the lowest hanging fruit we can address tonight. So, yeah, we all are in agreement that the order should be changed, but how should it be changed? And in what way, if the clerk has?
So that first sub-bullet point under that one, I think this was actually suggested by Councilmember Quisenberry. The suggestion was that the chair votes last at their respective Cal meeting, so the order would start so that they would be the last one, so it would start to I guess, to the left of them, full circle. And then at the subsequent council meeting, because we kind of see them as like a series, it would be the same voting order. So for 2 weeks in a row, we would have the same voting order, and it would be a predictable rotation, much like the rotating chair in numerical order by ward. However, I did include a note that we should probably include language about what to do with special council meetings. So when we have meetings that fall outside of the traditional order, or there's maybe not a preceding committee of the whole, is there a preference on how voting order or chair is ascribed beyond what we do presently?
James?
Yes, thank you. The current council rules define the chair of the committee of the whole as essentially the beginning of a COW meeting to the end of the subsequent council meeting. So I feel like we could use that it's always, you know, the person to the left of the chair or next up into the line from the chair, because we always know who the chair of the COW is supposed to be because of that. Now, some of these nights where we have 4 meetings, we do really need to understand which meeting is what, because there was one night where it wasn't completely clear to me what order we were going in, but that doesn't happen. That's happened like 3 times since I've been on council, so we just have to be clear.
Grace?
Also wondering if there's any legal language, maybe the clerk and possibly attorney want to think about that is not such a requirement, you know, like a may rather than a shall, you know, like preferably in order starting with the next person to chair and the chair votes last. But I think that some of these seem like a little more of our preference that I wouldn't want to have someone hold it to, that in future councils 20 years from now it goes out of order and then we're like in violation of our meeting rules. And you know, I don't know if some of these that are more preference like can have some language that doesn't have us in trouble if we don't follow it to the letter.
I will just add, they are your rules, so we get to put in there whatever you please. So yes, we can absolutely add caveats like in the event of vacation or in the event of like we get off track, like what happens. But yeah, absolutely.
Is there anyone else?
Can we wrap up that bullet point? Should we straw poll? We already stuck our thumbs up prematurely, but we could officially.
We need a straw poll then for the conversation in regards to switching the vote order.
Yes, please, in line with what I guess has been discussed and presented. So numerical, starting voting order would be to the left of the chair. It would be the same for the committee of the whole and the council. In the event of special meetings, it's going to be the exact same order. So, yeah.
In support of? Go. All right. And then, I guess, so then are we moving to the next bullet point, which was the gender neutral conversation addressing? So any conversation details? Jaya?
Yeah, I think Grace kind of covered a lot of what I was going to say, but I think just to reinforce, I think, you know, if among us we do all switch, I think it would be unrealistic to be like, now you can't use first name anymore, or at least it would be interesting. But I think that, like, especially for official purposes, like what's in the minutes, being able to agree to using gender-neutral terms in keeping with other standards that we've set for the city makes sense. So the council member or alderperson and then trustee makes sense to me, so that we can make sure that we are being inclusive.
Chandra?
It's always been my question, is it council member or is it alderperson? Like, I know we switch back and forth, but what is the legal true?
So it's technically alderman, like the title of the elected office is alderman. However, in our city code, in our own governing doctrine, alderman, alderwoman, alderperson, and council member are to be synonymous for our use. But legally and with the State Board of Elections, it is alderman.
Okay.
Council member, well, I'm joking. Go ahead, Mary Alice.
I think having in any official documentation, meeting minutes, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. So if we could just have a little bit of clarity in terms of when that terminology would necessitate gender-neutral language, that'd be great.
Sure. So the primary driver of this being included as an item for discussion was with roll call, how the clerk was to address the council or to get your attention. Prior clerks have used Miss or Mr. with the last name. And when I came in, I welcomed using councilmember trustee to address. I also do think that for my purposes, especially on meeting nights where we have more than one meeting, if it's a township meeting, when I'm calling trustee, I think that's a verbal indicator to our audience that we are in a township meeting versus a city council meeting. But beyond that, I have not received any feedback about how you should address one another while you're up here at the dais. In the meeting minutes, it has always been trustee or council member. But that is not actually dictated anywhere. So this would be an opportunity to provide some direction to the clerk's office on keeping that the way it is or whatever.
I personally like the concept of council member, trustee, such and such, or just first name, you know, as we typically do. That just seems like it's, you know, streamlined, straightforward, so, but that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the minutes, just to kind of reinforce too, I think putting trustee or council member in the minutes, it just clarifies who we're talking about, right? Like, probably not everyone's going to know everybody's first name, and while we hopefully know who we're talking about up here, I think for the minutes, if we can continue, I think what you're doing is working, is basically what I'm saying, so I think keep it going.
All right, so now do we take a straw poll for the support of that verbiage that we just discussed? Everyone's in agreement. All right, here we go.
Our next one was the role of the chair for COW and being able to participate fully in meetings and pass the chair to make a motion or second something, because this is something that's had some kind of mixed interpretations on. And it seems like, you know, with the current clerk's understanding that that's not the intention of the chair, should not limit a council member's participation in a meeting or in an item. And so I think this one is important so that everyone can still participate, even if they are chair, because that can definitely be weaponized if you can't fully participate in a meeting while you're the chair, and that's a problem. So I think this is a really important one that we could just all be on the same page about, so there's no question about what someone is or is not able to do as chair.
James?
Can I get a clarification on what we're actually changing? Because procedurally, from a standpoint of Robert's rules, our rules, it's always been possible, as far as I know, for the chair to hand off the chair and enter into debate or make a motion. But it's that way for a reason, because when you're sitting in the chair, you're supposed to be impartially governing what's going on in the meeting. So it's a cue, it's a actual cue that you're letting go of that impartial conduct of the meeting responsibility, and somebody else is going to control the meeting while you're letting go of that. So are we trying to change it so that there doesn't have to be that cue, that we're in committee of the whole, anybody can engage at any point, or are we just codifying something that is already the way I think it should be?
So I would agree with the latter summarization that you provided. It is my understanding that presently a chair can relinquish the chair and make a motion, because again, it's relinquishing the chair, so you're not controlling the meeting and you are still able to participate. However, I believe the way it is presently explained in our rules is they shall not enter debate. There is no reference to motions in the current language, and that has been a recurrent question, which is why it was suggested that a modification be made simply in the existing part where it says the chair must be relinquished to enter debate or make a motion. That is how I envisioned that happening. So yes, it would still have to be relinquished in order to do that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I fully support that.
Jaya?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I think further clarification too in terms of asking questions. I think that there's been some confusion too of like, can I ask a question if I'm the chair? And Mary Alice, I know that, but I think that clarifying that in writing too of, yes, someone can ask a question, it's the debate aspect that where there's that prohibition or where the chair needs to be passed. So just, again, to make sure we're all on the same page. And I do appreciate, like I'm seeing people nod and stuff, and just to reiterate that I don't know if any of us who were sworn in for the last term ever saw the rules. I didn't. I was like, so I think that that's something too of like until this year where it was up for a discussion about do we want to change anything. I actually had never been provided with a copy of and maybe some of that's my own fault for not seeking it out, but I actually did not know that we had the ability to change the rules for the committee of the whole. And so I think that, again, some of it seems repetitive or like, shouldn't we all know this by now? But I do think it's good just to make sure let's have it in writing so we're all on the same page going forward.
I will just add, so based off of the notes and when council is at a point where they feel comfortable with directing the clerk's office staff to prepare a resolution, it's a living document. We can edit it because we're going to be doing some wordsmithing and we want to make sure we're actually capturing exactly what it is that you guys are hoping to. The other thing I will add is that your council rules may be suspended at any future meeting with a vote of 2/3 of the seated council. And you guys can also come back and edit the rules via resolution anytime. So this one is entirely customizable indefinitely. It's meant to be a helpful resource more than anything else. So this doesn't end when we finish this set of discussions either, if you'd like.
Chandra?
So when you say the chair can't participate in debate, if they relinquish the chair, then they can participate in debate until that resolution motion has been settled, right?
So they just have to relinquish the chair to enter into debate. But they can, if they intend to continue debating, they don't have to necessarily take the chair back right away.
Okay.
Like it's kind of fluid how you guys cede the chair to one another, because again, it's intended to share administrative duties and never to inhibit your ability to represent your wards.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We will take a straw poll for the agreement of the changes in regards to the role of the chair that was just discussed. All right. Thank you. All right, next, go for it. Were you about to say something? I'm
I
sorry.
can. I think
Go for
that
it.
the next point is about clarifying language regarding abstentions and conflict of interest. So there's some language there that people might want to review, but I do think that that clarification will be helpful. I'm going to take a moment and reread it. It looks like the clerk may have thoughts too.
Yeah, this wasn't so much as a suggested change to the council rules, more so as me providing an opportunity to answer to a question. There had been an ask of the clerk's office about including language for abstentions and conflicts of interest, and so I provided what is already in our city code that does govern us in regards to administration, or in regards to abstentions, rather. And this is pulled, I believe, with a citation to state law as well. So this, unfortunately, is something that is firm. I don't believe that there is a lot of wiggle room in amending this. This was provided merely as informational, so you're aware of what already dictates abstentions and conflict of interest. There wasn't necessarily an indicated change here. It's just more information-based.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reminder. I think maybe some of where people get confused too is there's the opportunity to vote present. And in that case, it goes with the majority. Is that correct?
That is correct. A vote of present just vote goes with the majority. It's not an abstention. It's not a conflict of interest. There is a rule of thought in Robert's Rules of Orders that a vote of present is not a valid vote whatsoever, because your duty as a legislator is to vote aye or nay, and that present doesn't exist. But we have ruled that present counts with the majority, and I believe that is enumerated somewhere in city code already, but it is outside of council rules presently.
And I think the other question that I come up with this is kind of, do people need to, and some of this, again, I'm being intentionally repetitive, if do people need to state what the conflict of interest is? And I think that the understanding is people just need to state that they have a conflict of interest. Is that correct?
It is my understanding that you are supposed to state what the conflict of interest is. I don't believe you have to get into details, but if it's related to work or financial interest, you just say, I have a conflict of interest professionally, et cetera, and I will actually defer to the attorney if he wants to add anything further to clarify that.
No, I think that's sufficient. I think as long as you sort of state a general description of the nature of the conflict, but you don't have to get into the specifics.
James?
Yeah, I find this interesting because this is where our rules are specific in a way that is kind of different from Robert's rules. The idea that, and I appreciate why it is this way, and that is that you can state that you believe you have a conflict of interest, but we specifically have something in there that says you don't have to justify it or prove it to anybody around you. And I think if you feel like you have a conflict of interest, so Mary Alice shouldn't be telling me that, no, you don't have a conflict of interest, because that's what I feel. I don't think it's clear enough on whether or not you have to state the nature of the conflict. It's implied that you don't have to, because you don't have to justify it, but I do think it's important to the public, when you're abstaining for a conflict of interest, that it be explained. So if we could clarify that so that you give at least a minimum amount of where the conflict's coming from. My wife's on the board of that institution, or I work at that place. I think that would be beneficial for the public. The ability to not vote is another thing that is, it happens, other places do that, but we have expressly said that you can pass, and I would say present is equivalent to passing. But I think at times, it's not been clear to me whether a pass or a present is related to a conflict or not. And that's why I just felt it was good for us to talk about this, to make sure we're all on the same page, because it does change how you record it in the record, depending on what it is. And so I'm always trusting you to ask for that clarification for your record keeping.
I will add as a clarifying thing and expand upon, James, you are absolutely correct. On our ordinances and resolutions, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the page where it records your votes. The only fields are ayes, nays, and abstains. So abstains do not count as an aye or a nay because they are for a stated conflict of interest. However, a present vote will be recorded as an aye or a nay depending on which side was prevailing or in the majority. So that is correct. We do not log present or past votes as abstentions because abstain is very clearly stated usually among our council. We've not had any confusing instances yet, but I agree. I think that there is certainly room within the council rules to provide some clarifying language about expectations with declaring conflict of interest, as well as maybe in clarifying our existing process for how we handle votes of present versus pass, or however. I welcome this.
Chris?
And just to remind ourselves, when there is an abstentia for a conflict of interest, and there's only one of those, the potential to create a tie vote exists, and the mayor breaks the tie. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chris. The mayor may vote in instances of ties, and a singular abstention would create an opportunity for a tie.
James? I'm sorry.
That's older person, Quisenberry. Yeah, two things to follow up on this. One, it would be very helpful if we had an illustration of what an abstention, or I think it's typically an abstention, does to the requirements for how many votes are required for something to pass, because it is different in some circumstances when the state requirement is a certain number of the corporate body. And I've read through that, a dozen times, and I still have to go back and look at it and say, if someone's abstaining here, does that mean we still need 5 votes? Or does that mean now we need 4 votes because the count of participants has changed? And I think I need a chart, because every time I look at it, I have to rebuild it. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and I've had this conversation with Darcy, one of the things about Robert's rules is that, and I bugged her about this and she's set me straight. One of the things about Robert's rules that a lot of people don't understand is when it talks about the chair, in Robert's rules, the chair can make or break a tie. In other words, a chair can cause something to pass that wasn't going to pass because it was tied, and they can also cause something to fail that was going to pass by making a tie. State law is actually, this is what Darcy pointed out to me, state law is explicit that the only time the mayor gets to vote is to break a tie. They don't have the power, based on how the legislation was written, to do the other thing that if you're used to Robert's rules is an option. So maybe everybody else knew that, but I didn't know that, and Darcy helped me see that that's one of those things we can't change because it's part of state law.
Well, and briefly, I will address both of those things. So in addition with your second point as well, budget items are also a matter enumerated in state law that the mayor is allowed to vote on outside of ties, but that is the only exception, is budget items, both passing and amending our budget ordinance. And then I will have to look into this further, but to your first point in regards to abstentions impacting majorities of the corporate authority or supermajorities of the corporate authority required to vote, my understanding is that it varies based on type, because the language itself in a couple of places says of members present, and then at other times says of members total. And so it varies by subject matter, because of members total implies that even if a member is ill and is not participating, or a member abstains, that the number required for passage does not change and is the same regardless. That being said, I do believe that there are others that say of members present. So I do agree with you that a chart would be helpful, because of members present implies that if a member is sick, then that number would change. So.
All right, Grace?
So can I just clarify, recap on this one? This is a mostly informational bullet piece, right? But we're saying maybe add some detail about how to state the nature of an abstention.
Yeah, perhaps
Anything else?
including like a paragraph or a subpoint somewhere in our existing council rules that says when a conflict of interest arises, because I think it's in 3 right there, it says of a stated conflict of interest, and that's in city code, of course, not in rules, but just expanding upon that and saying, like, you should state the conflict of interest or a brief summary of a conflict of interest at the time of abstaining on a vote. And then also maybe some explanation of like a present vote and how that is recorded, explicitly stating that it is recorded with the majority as opposed to recorded as an abstention.
All right, next, we are looking at consideration of modifying how items are placed on the agenda. Who would like to kick this conversation off? Grace?
This is one that I do not agree with. I think the clerk has already stated the potential OMA violation issue, that 3 council members can't get together and talk about putting something on the agenda. You'd have to awkwardly triangulate, and seems like an unnecessary burden. It's also limiting the access of council members and the representatives to put things on the agenda. In our term together here as this body, there have been quite a few things that have been brought on by 2 council members that have been successful and have passed unanimously and have been really important pieces. And I don't think that there's any reason why we should limit our access to putting things on the public agenda, and why we would even consider the appearance and the risks of violating Open Meetings Act by making this change.
Jan?
I do appreciate having the opportunity to review this and make sure we're all on the same page, because there was a lot of back and forth and confusion and debate during the last term about whether it had to be 1 person or 2 people. And I think when we were having an initial conversation about this before, the point that something might be important to 1 council member and deserve time, even if it's something that doesn't end up moving forward, just because we do each represent a different part of the city. So I really appreciate having the opportunity for the committee as a whole to have 1 council member bring something forward. I think like I can understand the logic behind 2 for city council, where we're talking about a greater potential for final action. But I think considering the fact that there could be something that is unique to 1 part of the city that maybe hasn't had a lot of time or attention brought to it before, I think there is a benefit in saying for the committee of the whole, having 1 person be the requirement. I would like to keep that.
Chris?
For example, if the Ward 3 representative wanted to put forth on the agenda an ordinance that prohibited construction north of Carver Drive, they ought to be allowed to put that on the agenda for a vote. And I don't know why we would limit any council member's ability to represent their district for the exact reason. Each ward is different. Constituents' priorities are different. And that alder person or man or whoever they are has the right as a representative to put things on the agenda that reflect their constituents' interests. So I don't understand why we would ever limit democracy like this, and absolutely will be voting against this for sure.
Mary Alice?
So I think where I'd like to make the distinction is between city council and committee of the whole, where the committee of the whole is the council, right? And so having 1 person put something on the committee of the whole makes a lot of sense, up for the discussion. I am interested in 3 members on the city council because ideally, anything would come through the committee, right? So if you have one person who's, this is important to the area that I represent, you would bring it to committee and then it would be voted on and it would go through the normal process. But to me, if you're going to put something directly on city council for final action, that bypasses the committee, which is why I think there has to be a little bit of, strength between putting something for final action on city council. I think having one person put a discussion item on city council makes a lot of sense because there's no final action. But those are my thoughts.
James?
Yeah, so I'm convinced and comfortable with the idea that committee of the whole is the council's tool to discuss things, and any member of the council should be able to ask for something to be on committee of the whole. I'm also comfortable with that from a perspective of an item for discussion on the city council agenda. What I'm uncomfortable with is anything going to, as Mary Alice stated, to the council agenda for potential action without the committee of the whole having voted on it, because that's what the committee of the whole exists for. And the other thing, so there's 2 nuances that are on my mind. First of all, I feel like the mayor and the administration is responsible for the city council agenda. That's just my belief. We can put things on the agenda by passing them out of the committee of the whole. And I think the mayor and the administration should have some capabilities with the city council meeting to make sure we can get the work done. I think they should have control over setting that agenda. There are things that come to council directly from a couple of areas that don't go through committee of the whole. It's the responsibility of the mayor to bring those things to the agenda. So that nuance of any of us should be able to ask for something to be put on the council agenda for discussion. We just have to understand that it might not happen because of what's on the list of things that the actions that need to be taken that evening. And if we're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with those with that approach. So I guess that means I'm comfortable with status quo. But I don't want there to be a mistake in that through status quo, there's a path to city council agenda that doesn't involve committee of the whole for final action, that doesn't involve committee of the whole voting on it.
Chris?
Well, I vigorously disagree that the mayor is in control of the entire agenda. I will concede to both your points, though, that perhaps when a member of city council wants to put something on the agenda, it should be at the committee of the whole. It starts there, and I would agree with that. I want to just be clear, when we say something on the agenda, that includes resolution and ordinances, and budget amendments, not just discussions. So I want to be clear on that. But I would agree that starting at the committee of the whole would be the proper place for a council member to put something on the agenda.
Chandra?
I mean, that was literally what I was going to say. Could it be something in here that says, if you want to add something to the agenda, it should start at committee of the whole versus going straight to council, unless it's something that's like emergent or urgent that we need to vote and address immediately before going through the series of cow to council.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's a lot of agreement in terms of the committee of the whole piece. I'm going to make an argument for maintaining status quo because there could be a situation where something can't wait till the next COW meeting, right? And I think if that's something where 2 council members are saying this is something that's time sensitive, we need to get this on the agenda. At the council meeting, the way things are currently, that still allows us to do so. And I definitely hear that should not be the default, right? You do have to at least still get one other person to agree that this is something that is time sensitive enough to get it on to the agenda for city council versus a committee of the whole meeting. But again, I don't want us to unintentionally limit our ability to enact our democratic responsibility. And I worry that if we make it too specific, then we're going to potentially take some of those opportunities away. And I think with our form of government, it is important that while, yes, the mayor is responsible for leading these meetings, we're all supposed to have a say in terms of what is happening in these meetings as well. Urbana has a very interesting form of government, and I think it's important that we make sure that we don't, I think I said this before, cede power that is supposed to be the responsibility of the city council, right? With all due respect to our current mayor, we do have an individual responsibility as alderpersons as well, and I want to make sure that we're not ceding that responsibility in the hopes that it won't be needed, right? I think ideally, we're not going to have something where it's like two city council members are like, we really have to talk about this week. But if that happens, I want to make sure we still have that opportunity.
Or Chris?
For example, James, the grocery store in Ward 3, the grant was due like in a couple weeks, so we had to put it on the agenda real quick. And so, Jay, what I'm hearing you saying, there has to be kind of an emergency ability to put things on the agenda if it's an emergency, if there's good reason, and maybe there needs to be a stated, go ahead, Jay.
So I would, again, I don't want to overly restrict it because we don't know what could come up, but that is the kind of situation I'm thinking about. And, I think ideally a council member could approach the mayor with that and say, hey, this is time sensitive. Can we please make sure this is on the agenda? But if there isn't consensus between the mayor and the council member, I think it's still important that we are able to enact our duty. Or if someone actually took a break when they're sick and they're not able to be here, right, that we're not holding something up that could be time sensitive. So that is those kind of unusual circumstances why I'm encouraging us to maintain what we have in writing now.
Grace?
I'm also in support of keeping things the way they are currently. One person adding things to COW, two people adding things to council, keeping in mind that council meetings are more than final action. It's also presentations and discussion, and that's also when we have time. I think it's a really bad idea to say that a council person can only add things to COW. Like, for example, we've been trying to have this discussion in COW meetings and running out of time. We've been pushing out old business, some items for months and months because we run out of time. I think it is absolutely an issue to say that we couldn't add something to a council meeting when that's when we finished our official business tonight before this discussion in 30 minutes versus trying to have a discussion at 11 o'clock. I think that's a really big issue. So I think we really need to keep things as they are. There is a history in the past administration of the mayor not cooperating with additions to agenda, and it was necessary to take that action, and even our legal right in our rules was challenged. And so I think it's very important that we keep what we have here currently. The original point here, from what I recall in the suggestion before I think it got derailed, was clarifying that a council member can bring any item to a meeting because it has been falsely shared as the narrative that a council person cannot propose a budget amendment, and that is not correct, and that's what was actually the original intention here, was not to take away any council member's right or access to add things to the agenda. It was just to clarify that we have the right to add any item to the agenda under our current rules. So I think we really need to keep it as is, and I would recommend that if there's the will of the majority, that we clarify that this applies to any item.
James?
So two more things. I have a question. What is the criteria for council members to call a special meeting? I would suggest that the ability for council members to put things for action on the agenda should be equivalent to that bar. because there's a path to, I know it's in there, I just haven't looked at it recently. Because that's what the law says the council has with regard to defining when meetings are, outside of the regular schedule. If it's 2 people, then it's 2 people. So the other thing I want to talk about is the circumstance. I want to know how this council would deal with a circumstance where a particular council member has something that they want to see done that is not going to succeed, and repeatedly brings it as business to be handled, to disrupt and delay the process of working through the city's business. Have we seen that? I don't think we've seen that.
Can I
Have I
ask a-
seen that in a, you can't interrupt me, Grace.
Oh, I was going to ask a point of clarification, but, which I could, yes.
I've been in circumstances in government where people have taken that approach because one person can slow things down and disrupt things and create issues like that. They can have, ask the same questions meeting after meeting, subsequent meetings, and delay progress when it's clear that a majority of the council is ready to move forward. So I just want to know that if we're going to go that path, I mean, there was a time in this particular city council decades ago where one person felt their job was to disrupt what was going on because they were so different from the mindset of the other 6 members that they took up time. I just want to know that we're prepared to deal with that situation as well as keeping the doors open for ideas to flow in.
Darcy.
I'm just going to briefly respond to your original question about the number of council members required to call a special city council meeting. I had to pull up the Municode code on my phone. It is any 3 members of the city council or the mayor may call a special meeting of the city council, and it goes on to state that the only business that can be that can happen, period, at a special meeting is the stuff that's stated in the notice, which is for the most part, true of all of our meetings. Like, you can't take any action on items that aren't advertised on an agenda. However, in my reading of this, in regards to special meetings, it seems that they would discourage you even discussing business, which we presently have the authority to do at any given meeting. You just can't take action, so.
So you're saying that the state law that actually addresses a council that needs to do something that maybe the mayor has been blocking states that the barrier to get a special meeting, because it's that important, is 3 council members to get it done.
I believe the citation for this is state law, but I am not seeing that jump out at me right at this moment. But our current city code, you are correct, does state that it is 3 council members are required to call a special meeting.
Okay, and that's where I get that's the basis for my thought that an item for action going on city council needs that kind of bar.
Jaya?
So I'm just going to say, and maybe it's partially this time that we're living in, I'm not in support of anything that's going to reduce our ability to represent or democratically engage in the process of governance. I think that the challenges we've seen with the current process have been more so being told you can't when we were allowed to based on what the rules were in place during the last term. Even with that and the amount of work it has taken to get items that were of great importance to members of our community onto agendas, I haven't seen anyone abuse that. And I think if someone is so determined to keep bringing something up over and over again, I don't want to put us in a position to govern based out of the potential for inconvenience. I think it's more important that we are creating an open and democratic process that allows for people to speak. And if something is of that great of importance that they're going to keep bringing it up over and over and over again, I'm willing to take that risk. I think that there are a lot of things that are inconvenient about democracy, but I think that there's a lot to be said for that inconvenience. I think that's how we make sure that we're actually representing our communities. And I strongly disagree with any additional limitations on, again, the responsibility that this body has. So I hear that there is an extra person who is required for calling a special meeting. But I think that is a very high bar for things to be so dire that the city council has to call a special meeting is very different than putting something on the agenda during a city council meeting. So I'm going to say again, I like the way things are. It's good to know what that process is for if there's a need to call a special meeting. But I also think that putting something on the agenda for city council is not comparable. And I think it's unnecessarily limiting to say that we're using this dire circumstances kind of level to make determinations about what goes on an agenda, including for things that could be time sensitive.
Chris?
So Darcy, clarify for us, when something is on the agenda brought up by a council member and there is a vote and that is voted down, that's it, right? I mean, the only way it can be changed if a member of the winning party intends to change their vote on a subsequent vote. Is that correct?
Within the same meeting, that is correct, because that would be a motion to reconsider.
Yeah.
And a motion to reconsider must be within the same meeting that the item failed. So before adjournment happens, a member on the prevailing side, which in this case would be the opposing
Right.
side, would have to change their mind and reintroduce it. Now,
During the same meeting?
during the same meeting.
Now, let's say it's got voted down and 2 meetings later, they'd like to bring it, somebody wants to flip and bring it back.
It's actually not required that they flip at a future meeting to bring it back. The same item can be brought back again at a future meeting
By the
any-
winning side or the losing side?
by-
Anybody?
By anybody,
Okay,
as long as it's a new meeting.
okay. And then again, it just follows the same process of we take a vote and we vote it down, up or down again. Okay. And also our 3 minutes of council communications, we can talk about anything. And if I want to talk about every night during the 3 minutes that the Minnesota Vikings are the best football team ever, I can do that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Grace?
Thank you. Also would like to clarify that my understanding in checking in the procedures here, speaking of following the procedures, is that I do have the right to interrupt a speaker to make a parliamentary inquiry, which is what I was trying to do to clarify that point about if anything of your concerns are relevant, if that is even possible, because what we've been told and what we've been operating under is that once something fails, it cannot be brought back by any of the people who were in support of it, and it failed at any time ever. So if that's not the case, we really need to clarify that, because that's what we've operated under too, including amendments, not even just a whole thing, but if you propose this amendment and it got shot down, you or nobody else can bring that same amendment up again. And if that's not the case, that's a really big issue, because that's what we've been told and what we've been operating under. So I do think we need to clarify that, and I think that if that is the case, that you can't bring it up once it's been voting down, that concern is not valid. If that's not the case, then we have an issue with how we've been operating.
I agree with you, Grace, and it has been something that has been a point of confusion, and I've heard both sides. However, my understanding, based off of researching parliamentary procedure and conferring with the attorney, is that to reconsider is only within the same meeting, and that is where the conditions must be met, that it is a member of the prevailing and opposing side must change their mind to bring it back. However, at future meetings, so after adjournment, new meeting, it's, as long as it's on the agenda, it can be brought up again by anyone and reconsidered. And this body has done that previously with items, and it was still voted down. But I do recall with a budget item, it failed as a standalone budget amendment, was brought back in a future proposed draft budget, and was removed again. That was not council initiated. That was administered by the mayor's office at that time. But that has occurred with this body. But I do not disagree with you. It has definitely been presented and expressed to this council previously that once an item is failed, it's done. But that is not my current understanding.
I would just confirm that that's correct. Yeah, and within the same meeting, like she said, it requires a motion to reconsider. It's going to be somebody from the opposing party, and typically it's on the basis of new information received. I saw this happen once in my time in Champaign, and it was strictly that. New information came in about something that had happened, and the council reconsidered and voted again, and something that failed the first time passed. So within the context of separate meetings or separate council sessions, it can come up repeatedly.
I'll just say something too. I'm not, sorry, I'm not opposed to, seeing things remain the same, right? With the understanding that, as Darcy mentioned earlier, changes can be made, right? I am of the notion that until and if we see something be abused on either side, right, in this current administration, there's no need to, make any unnecessary movement as far as I'm concerned, in this regard to now. Because what I don't want us to do is go into, this moment in time and having people feel as though their voices are being, taken from them as we continue to, move in our own space. We're all governing our own individual. You guys have your wards, this, that, and the third. All of your wards are coming, to me, and I have to help, navigate that space as a whole, So I don't want, anyone to feel as though their voice is being removed, as we are moving forward in decisions for the betterment of the city. So as far as I'm concerned, I am not opposed to seeing things remain the same until we need to address it again, if we need to address it again. So I think someone down here had their hand up. I'm sorry, James.
Yeah, I just want to add for the reconsideration thing, actually, Darcy and I have talked about this a couple times, not in a moment where it came up, unfortunately, but the confusion comes from the observation of something like Congress, which you cannot, once something fails, you can't bring it up again in a Congress session because Congress never adjourns. For their 2 years, they recess. So it's essentially the same session. And we've had that question as to whether for city council, our term is a session or a year is a session or the meeting is a session. And I know it came up that they needed to research this and that the meeting essentially is a session. So if you make an amendment proposal in committee of the whole and it fails, and I think we had this with the budget, you can propose that amendment when it's at city council. And I think we had that with this budget cycle. I think we did. And so that is a circumstance that finally it came to a point where it had to be researched, and we have a definitive answer there.
I will just add that we do not define session anywhere in our city code, anywhere in our ordinances or resolutions, or anywhere in our council rules. There is also nothing regulating session as it pertains to this application in regards to like being able to reconsider items within state law that I was able to find. It simply exists out in like parliamentary procedure and Robert's rules where they do prohibit within a session. A session can be a series of meetings as described with our Congress. But because we do not have a definition for session, and because it typically is consistent with or synonymous with adjournment, and we can take action separately at each of our meetings, we have treated at the City of Urbana a singular meeting as a singular session. Therefore, items can continue to be brought back at future meetings in lieu of a session being defined.
So 2 things. One, I think it's good we're having this conversation because I think there's very clearly different information that has been shared with different people, so I'm glad we're having the conversation. And then I think Chandra may have had her hand up, but I was just going to suggest maybe we take a straw poll on keeping things the same to see if we can move forward.
Chandra?
Yes, I was going to say, let's move on.
Straw poll on keeping things the same as we move forward. All right. All right, and then the last, the consideration of modifying council input from 3 minutes to 5 minutes to match public input time requirements. Grace?
I don't have a problem with changing it from 3 to 5 minutes. I think that we do need to keep it limited, and we do need to stick to it in practice. I think it makes sense to just have the mayors on the same one. This is something that came out from what I recall the 2 terms ago when it was COVID and on Zoom, and public input was being limited to 3 minutes. It was being reduced in its overall time, and people were being muted based on the content of their speech. And there were a lot of issues going on. And at the same time, council members during their council input would go over the rules of what they were supposed to at that time. And it got brought up and pretty criticized that if you're going to hold the public to these strict expectations for input, that we should do the same for ourselves. So I think that we need to keep the limitation and keep it consistent with council members and the mayor, but I don't have a problem if we want to change it from 3 to 5 minutes.
Chandra?
I think we talk all meeting, so like expanding it to 5 minutes from 3, it doesn't seem like a very big deal, in my opinion. I think we talk all meeting, so you're most likely expressing your opinions or concerns about resolutions or ordinances throughout the meeting. And to give just, small updates about what's happening in the community doesn't usually take all that long. So I don't think moving it to 5 minutes is that important.
Jaya?
I don't have strong feelings about this, but I will say that there are times during meetings where council comments towards the beginning, and a lot of community members don't stay for the rest of the meeting. So if there was something that would take more than 3 minutes that council members might want to share, that's the only benefit I would see, is for those particular meetings to be able to take the full 5 minutes. But again, I don't have strong feelings. I think, to Chandra's point, we do have opportunities to speak on particular items throughout the meeting as well.
James?
I don't intend to speak more or less if we change it.
Chandra?
Why does the council input and communications move per meeting?
So there's actually a couple of items of business that change in their order on your agendas. The order of the items on your agendas is set by city code. So that was adopted via ordinance of a prior council. And so that order is as it appears in city code. Although, of course, you can change the order of business every single meeting under additions to the agenda as you see fit. But I believe that why council input and communications appears where it does for various meetings. So this is guess, but council is supposed to be final action. Working out drafts, questions, discussion could have happened at committee of the whole. And so council input and communications is following up on stuff from the prior week ahead of the business, because the business has been taken care of, so to speak, at committee of the whole. Because I believe committee of the whole, council input and communications is one of the last items on the agenda. So it's after the business, after the working session and working through the stuff, maybe a summary statement. I think it was more a form of how the meetings were intended to flow rather than anything else. But again, you guys can change that. And if there is interest in changing the order of your agendas, we can certainly revisit that ordinance and amend that too. But the order of the business as it appears is codified, so it would require an ordinance rather than a resolution to change.
Chandra?
So other things on the agenda that we never have anything under, like reports of special committees and reports of standing committees. I mean, it's been a whole term and we have not had anything under those items. Is there a reason why they remain?
So they were never removed. We haven't amended the ordinance that has them. There used to be committees that council members served on. That predates my tenure here with the city. So I don't know how they functioned. I don't know examples of such committees. I can certainly go back to prior minutes and see. And I have seen them. It would be, as I understand it, council members reporting out on these committee assignments that they were a part of. So they're still there because you haven't removed them. And they're a holdover from when there used to be more council homework, I guess.
James?
Yeah, they're also a holdover from when Urbana City Council had 14 members. And there was, and I learned this because I was reading the 50 years ago today thing in the News Gazette and saw that the newly elected mayor was appointing someone to their seat, to a seat in their ward. And I said, how could that be, right? Did they get elected as mayor and then got to fill that seat? Because that was very intriguing to me at the time. But we had 14 members, and committees could then have 3 or 4 or 5 people on them and meet and not have the issue that we have with a 7-member body from a standpoint of a majority of a quorum and things like that. And so there were more committees. When it got down to 7, sometime shortly after that, I assume they moved to the committee of the whole because it just didn't make sense to have, break off 2 or 3 people to talk about personnel or to talk about public works or whatever they used to have committees for.
Right. Seeing, is there no more discussion? Chandra?
I was going to say, seeing as how we don't have 14 anymore, perhaps we can revisit what appears on the agenda at some point, once all of this goes through.
All right. With that being said, we'll take a straw poll to leave council input at 3 minutes.
You're calling the straw poll to leave it at 3?
Yeah, to leave it, because everyone's in agreement of no changes being made, correct? Mary Alice?
I believe as I was reading the notes, I'm sorry, the ordinance on the rules, any member, if somebody says, hey, I need more than 3 minutes, can request more than 3 minutes, we can vote on it. So I feel like, since I think that will be not very common, I think we should just leave it at 3.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable. I would just say, I think we should clarify what the process is for that, right? Like, do you ask the chair and then it's voted on, right? I think just like to clarify so that if someone hits that 3-minute mark and they really are in the middle of something, but I would say potentially even to recommend that we're not giving ourselves more time than we would for the public. But yeah, I would just say, like, let's clarify.
James?
Yeah, and before we completely leave this, because I agree leaving it's fine, I do want to suggest that one of the things that's not on here was the discussion of the fact that the amount of time council members can speak in debate, that length of time is defined in 2 different ways in the guide. I don't know if it's 2 different ways in the ordinance. One is 3 minutes, one is 5 minutes. And so we should clarify that, and it also includes the limitation, which we never I don't think we pay attention to it. Maybe once or twice we've been strict about it, that council members speak twice during debate. And so, if we're going to continue to allow people to speak multiple times and not have that as a rule, we should take it out, is my point. I've never felt like it serves, it only seems to serve in contentious situations where we're concerned that the debate is going to get circular and continue endlessly. So that's not on here, but that discrepancy between the time you get to speak in debate and whether or not we're actually going to keep the part about only twice during debate should come up at some point.
Sure. Darcy? Darcy.
I will just add, so the council input and communications, Rule 3 as it currently stands, is on page 156 of the published packet. It's also page 2 of the resolution 2021-01-003R. And actually, I am kind of changing my own understanding of them and reading them right now. And that it says that each council member shall be limited to speaking once until all others have had an opportunity to speak. And then it does go on and say that they will be allowed a 30-second response or comment. It doesn't state a cap, though. So as it's currently written, you could continue to ask for 30-second intervals. It doesn't outline that the chair is the one that has to, it says the chair will ask for council comments and recognize council members, so they would have to be recognized, but there's nothing about voting up or down if someone gets another 30 seconds. It doesn't say there's a max number of 30-second intervals that you could have. The other thing that I will add to, I misspoke earlier. So I know it is stated in city code, the order of the agenda in terms of the items of business, but it's also stated there in Rule 3 before it gets into the little details where council input and communication shall appear on the agendas. It explicitly states that input and presentations shall precede, and committee input and communications will be the last item at committee meetings. And that council input and communication shall follow public input at city council meetings. It doesn't explain why, but it does clearly state that. So if there is interest in changing where those appear on agendas, we should edit it in the rules and the ordinance. So we'll tackle that. But I just wanted to call that out and apologize. I misspoke there. It's in both. So.
Thank you, Darcy. Chris, did you have something? We got to take a straw poll. Okay. Taking a straw poll to leave it at 3 minutes. All right. That passes. Everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, it was everyone. No hesitation. Chris, what you got, man?
I just wanted to add another consideration, and that is I would like to codify that when a council member is scheduled to be the chair and they can't make that meeting, how are they replaced, that chairperson? Who then replaces them as the chair?
So presently, functionally, what we do is if the council member alerts us and is like, hey, I'm not able to chair this meeting, and asks us to find a replacement, we go to the next ward in numerical order. Now, we have also had times where a council member has come to us and been like, hey, I took care of this for you, I'm not gonna be there, but I asked so-and-so to chair in my absence, and that sometimes skips numerical order. And we have honored that and kind of gone with the flow because there's nowhere where this is outlined or stated. However, I will say, like, when it is up to us to dictate, we just keep the numerical order because it keeps it clean, it makes sense, but nowhere is this codified.
All right. Well, if that is it, seeing that there's no additional, Jaya.
Sorry, not to keep people longer, but I do think, it sounds like we've made a lot of progress tonight, but I think that item, clarifying if we want to codify that. And also, yeah, the number of times people can speak in debate, because we're certainly not abiding by the rules as they're written. There are a lot of times, and I will say too, it makes me uncomfortable that the idea that everybody has to speak before someone could speak again. Because if I heard you correctly, that's how it is written now. So I think we're not abiding by that. So like James said, if it's in writing, we should be abiding by it. And I think that's another item we really should look at. So it doesn't have to be tonight, but I would say before any new proposal for rules come forward, I'd like to see those items revisited.
Darcy.
Would it be helpful to bring back like a red line and highlighted version of the current rules? I guess drawing attention to some of these areas that we maybe don't currently enforce or wish to revise, as well as maybe give you guys some peeks at the draft language from the other changes that you do have a consensus on. Another discussion item, but like a mock-up track changes of the existing resolution with attention drawn to the areas that we haven't yet discussed. Would that be a helpful? Okay.
you have anything?
I have just one unsolicited bit of attorney feedback for the council to consider for future purposes. So this is an observation of mine since I've been here for a year or so and looked at different council rules and related matters. We have a lot of disparate, overlapping documents that sort of have become the council rules. Those are not codified. They're not in the city code, as often council rules are. They're not all in one place in a set. And I've heard a few comments. You know, Jaya mentioned earlier, just not being familiar with them. I think for accessibility, for having the information available both to council members and to the public, and for being able to track changes over time. So we have a bunch of disparate resolutions that have been passed for, over the past 3 or 4 decades. Once in a while, there'll be an amendment to a council rule. Tracking when those are updated, when they're revised, keeping them together, I think, would be a really important piece procedurally if council were in favor of doing that at some point in time. It's going to take some work to kind of make sure that we cover everything that's ever been passed and make sure we're repealing things that need to be repealed if it's an ordinance or not. But I do think it would be worthwhile to consider and to spend time on. So my 2 cents as the attorney in the room.
Mary Alice?
Aside from many things that the new federal government has taught me, is that we need to revisit all the old laws and see if they are relevant. So I absolutely think that that is a good plan.
Agreed. Anyone else? All right. Matt, yes.
I want to tag on one thing. I should have mentioned this at the beginning. So this is not just my observation. The thing that really cemented it and compelled me to say something tonight is, as I was looking back through these rules, former city attorney Jack Waller, who passed away last week, which we thank Jack for his many, many contributions. A lot of what we're even talking about tonight was the product of Jack's work. But in Jack's memo that's in the current council rule document, it's in Appendix 2, he talks about this very thing and recommends a full codification of what they had in place, and that was from 2003. So this has been a concern, I think, for a while.
Thank you, Matt. All right. With no further business before this body,
I will just very briefly, quickly ask, so I will get to work on this. Is there a meeting date that you want this back before you guys? And again, I do recommend it still as a discussion item, but I will bring you a working draft version, like a red line version. But is there a meeting in mind?
go ahead, Grace.
I was going to say, I don't have preference whenever you're ready, but I don't know if Chandra had a more concrete suggestion.
Is the preference still a council meeting or like this, so it's presumably quicker to get into this kind of thing? All right, I'll find a time.
We'll find. All right, with no further business before this body, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.